Canelo Alvarez.
It's the biggest piece of dog.
Make sure y'all stay on point with
The Puncher's Point. What's good, y'all? Welcome back to The Puncher's Point. Canelo Alvarez is now a two-time undisputed champion. He has regained his IBF Super Middleweight Championship, making him a two-time undisputed champion by defeating William Scull by unanimous decision. Now, there's going to be a lot of criticism in this fight. There's going to be a lot of criticism about that fight. So I need y'all, all the Canelo fans, I need y'all to have a little bit of a warning before I go into this. This fight sucked. And honestly, it's pretty concerning for Canelo Alvarez. And I'm going to get to that in a little bit. But overall, I mean, when you go and you listen to the commentators, first of all, the commentators got to stop because they were giving so much criticism to William Scull. And I'm not going to lie to you. I understand the criticism. I'm not going to say I don't. But you got to give that same criticism to Canelo Alvarez. I mean, doesn't mean his name is Canelo Alvarez. Doesn't mean you shouldn't be able to give him any criticism. And they were giving him a little bit of it, but it just seemed like they were putting all the blame on William Scull. And I get it. This is his first ever, maybe his only world championship shot. So obviously they're going to be more hard on him because he's going up against Canelo. But to me, these commentators, especially the ones on DAZN, these commentators, all they want to see is just brawls. All they really want to see is guys attacking and charging and everything like that. And when you're taking a more of a conservative boxing approach, they don't like that. And I just think that's stupid. You know, in my opinion, I'm going to get to the strategy in a little bit, but William Scull, I said that in this fight he was going to show some weaknesses with Canelo, and I think he did that. Honestly, I'm not going to say he had an amazing performance, but he had some things that he did very well with, and there were other things that he could have improved on. So, with that being said, we're gonna go straight into the strategy. Well, first of all, let's start off with Canelo Alvarez. What got Canelo Alvarez this win? To me, I would say the biggest thing was the body punches. You know, he really did take advantage of those body punches every single time William Scull was on those ropes. William Scull was trying to lure him in, and you could tell that William Scull was really focused on those counters. What Canelo did so well with was he realized that because Skull is the more lengthy, the more rangy fighter, he realized that he wasn't going to go in there and try to aim for his head to try to take his head off because he would have got caught with a counter. So what did he do? He constantly targeted that body. And overall, let me say this right now. Both of these guys, they didn't have a great performance, but that is what won Canelo that fight because there wasn't much action. As far as William Scull, what did he do well with? Well, like I said, he had a lot of movement, and you can tell that that movement was frustrating Canelo Alvarez. You could tell. Um, you could tell that Canelo Alvarez really wasn't getting his feet set, and you could tell that the movement was just too much. You know, Skull was constantly moving around that ring. The problem with Skull, and I understand the criticism, is he did so much moving that he never really sat on his punches. He never really hurt Canelo. He hit him with one good uppercut in one of the rounds, and there were times where he would hit him with like the right counter, and he had his moments, but he never really hurt Canelo. He never really stopped Canelo from coming forward. And I mean, even if he did hurt Canelo, it's not like Canelo would have stopped coming forward to begin with. That's the type of fighter Canelo is. But I do think William Skull did a good job of moving around and basically kind of getting Canelo uncomfortable or getting Canelo frustrated with all that. And you could tell Canelo after the fight, he wasn't too happy. But you know what? This is the same guy who's being trained by Eddie Reynoso, who has also said that he doesn't like fighters who move around a lot. So yeah, he's gonna be frustrated. He don't like those types of fighters. Canelo wants a guy that's gonna stand and bang with him in the pocket. He don't want a guy that's gonna keep moving around. Now here's where the real criticism for William Skull comes in. You're in this fight and you're moving around. Obviously, there were so many times where Canelo just wasn't getting his feet set. Right then and there, that's when you should have attacked. Right then and there, that's when you should have attacked. And on top of that, every single time he was on the ropes, he was too worried about getting clipped in the chin that he wasn't even worried about the body. And he would always do this thing where he would just lift his arms up and move out the way. But Canelo's going to take apart that body every single time. Now, as the rounds progressed, I will say it seemed like William Skull got a little bit more comfortable come around the ninth round, I would say. The way I had it, I had William Skull barely winning the first round. The first round was a swing round because nothing really happened at all. I thought William Skull did an okay job. He had maybe like a 1-2 combo, and that's what gave me the round to William Skull. Other than that, from rounds 2 to 8, I gave it to Canelo Alvarez. And then rounds 9 to 11, William Skull really started picking it up. In rounds 9 to 11, what happened with William Scull? William Scull He was more active. He was landing, going back to those 1-2 combinations, which I wish he would have stuck with a lot more. I feel like it would have been a more entertaining fight. And then basically he was kind of pulling away towards those later rounds. Overall, what I really liked about him, he really started hitting Canelo with some rights. He started kind of chaining his punches together a little bit and then moving, and that's what I wanted to see from William Scull. The problem is William Scull was just waiting for one counter. He would hit him with counter and back away, or he wouldn't throw anything and he just let Canelo get a free body shot on him. To me, that's where the criticism comes in. It's not what he was doing. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie to you. That's the best way to beat Canelo. You got to keep walking, moving around the ring. But everybody expects Canelo to get beat like Bivol did and Floyd Mayweather did. The truth of the matter is this: not everybody is Bivol and not everybody is Floyd Mayweather, and that's what people got to keep in their mind. But William Scull, the movement really was frustrating Canelo. And I think that's something that Terence Crawford, because that fight's going to be made for September 12th in Las Vegas, that's something that Terence Crawford might need to take advantage of, moving around a lot more. As far as Canelo Alvarez, again, it just seemed like he was also very cautious or conservative too. It just seemed like he was kind of cruising by this fight. It felt like a sparring to him, I guess. So I just feel like I just wish Canelo Alvarez did a little bit more to cut the ring. I wish he was a little bit more aggressive and he wasn't just trying to attack when he was on the ropes. If you look at Canelo, he really wasn't trying to start any engagement. He was just really trying to get him on those ropes. And I just wasn't a big fan of that approach. So overall, the combined strategy, if I have to give it a grade, it's getting a 6. Excitement, I'm gonna give it a 5. What I just don't see anything that was too exciting about this fight. There wasn't a big punch output. Both of these guys really didn't show much. You know, you think if and I mean the commentators are right to a certain degree because it was William Skull's first championship shot, or excuse me, William Skull, because it was William Skull's first championship shot. Yeah, you would expect him to be a little bit more aggressive, but at the same time, you don't want to get knocked out either in front of the people at home. The Riyadh crowds are kind of small, so you don't want to get knocked out while thousands and thousands of people, millions actually, because it's Canelo Alvarez. You don't want to get knocked out in front of them. So he was basically trying to cruise, and he felt good about his performance. I wouldn't have felt good about that performance, but to me, there was no drama. There was no point where somebody was hurt. There was no anticipation. All it was just these two guys in the ring basically having a sparring match. It was a glorified sparring match, and that's what it was. And I can't say that's exciting. So I'm gonna give it a 5. Here's what'll boost this fight up more than what it should. The stakes, what was on the line. Anytime Undisputed is on the line, it has to be at least a 7 or an 8. So what else was on the line? Well, there were obviously rumors about Terence Crawford fight. Obviously, we now know that's happening. But to me, that fight wouldn't have been as significant unless Canelo got this undisputed championship, which he did. So for me, I'm not gonna lie to you. The stakes, I gotta give it an 8.5. Not only did he regain his undisputed championship, but what he also did was he basically secured that fight with Terence Crawford. And as much as I'm not a big fan of that fight, y'all heard me many times on the podcast say this. I'm not a big fan of Terence Crawford versus Canelo Alvarez. It is a huge fight, regardless. Two big names, Terence Crawford, Canelo Alvarez. Those are probably two of the greatest fighters in the 2020 era. So overall, what I will say is I'm really excited to see this fight. I guess in a way where I get to see two legends go at it in the ring. I'm not excited as the aspect of we got Terence Crawford, who was just at 154, bumping up 14 pounds, and he only had one fight at 154. So I'm not the biggest fan of that right there. But overall, this fight secured that fight with Terence Crawford for Undisputed. So now Terence Crawford has a chance to become a 3-time Undisputed champion in 3 different divisions, which will be absolutely historic. And I do believe that Canelo secured that. And then last but not least, Impact. Well, now all of a sudden, since the fight's being made, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm gonna give the Impact an 8. So you made the fight with Canelo with excuse me, Terence Crawford. You made the fight with Terence Crawford. And so now all of a sudden we're getting a huge fight, which they're calling the fight of the decade or the fight of one of the biggest fights of the century. You could argue that it's that by the names. And this win by Canelo Alvarez secured it. However, I can't put it anywhere more than an 8 because even though Skull had the best chance to upset Canelo, I can't put it anywhere up more than an 8 because Canelo was supposed to win this fight. You know, I mean, I know I talked about it in the podcast. William Scull, he could have had a chance to get a decision win, and two out of three of those judges, one had a 115, 113, the other one had a 116, 112, and then one had it a lopside, winning every single round, 119, 109. In my opinion, I like 115, 113. I could see 116, 112. Everybody was just glazing Canelo. I'm sorry, that was not a shutout. That was not a shutout by Canelo. There's no way you can look at that fight and say Canelo won every single round. It's just not true. So for me, I think it was a lot closer. I thought that William Skull kind of clutched up between 9, 10, 11. He clutched up. He started getting more active. He started bringing the fight to Canelo, and then round 12, Canelo closed out the fight. But to me, I had a 115, 113 Canelo. So now all of a sudden, if we add it all up and then we get the overall grade is going to be a 6.88. So now, when we compare it to the other fights that we have ranked for season four, with this being the second to last fight of season four that we are going to be ranking before we head on to season five, this fight between Canelo Alvarez and William Scull, right below Gabriela Fundora and Marilyn Badillo, and it's going to be right above Lauren Price versus Bexy Mateus at 6.88. So that's where that fight will land. So now we obviously know what's happening next. Terence Crawford, Canelo Alvarez, Undisputed Super Middleweight Championship. Cool. So for me, here's what I will say about that fight. What I will say about that fight is it's a big fight to be made. Obviously, like I said before, you have Canelo Alvarez and Terence Crawford. They're probably two of the best fighters in the 2020s. So the reason why I don't like this fight is because Terence Crawford couldn't even handle the pressure of Madrimov. He said Madrimov was very, very strong. I can only imagine what Canelo's going to be like. Canelo Alvarez clearly couldn't handle the footwork and the foot movement of William Scull. A lighter fighter like Terence Crawford, who, as y'all seen, can actually bulk up, he, I feel like, is going to give Canelo trouble as far as the movement. So it's all about power versus I guess footwork, I guess you can say. Um, and I think Terence Crawford, he's a super smart fighter. Again, another fighter with a big ring IQ, just like Canelo Alvarez. I feel like he's definitely taken some weaknesses from this fight. Um, I don't know how heated this fight's going to get. Obviously, they did their face off. They probably said a couple words back and forth, but it didn't seem too hostile. For me, I feel like both of these guys I feel like this fight, what it did, it made this fight so unpredictable because Terence Crawford is coming off of a very close win against Israel Madrimov, which you could say what you want about Israel Madrimov, but I think Virgil Ortiz had a better performance than Terence Crawford against him. And maybe it was because he picked up on some weaknesses when he fought Terence Crawford. That could also be it. But Terence Crawford didn't have the best performance against Madrimov. And then Canelo Alvarez is coming off of this lackluster performance against William School. So both of these guys, their last performances haven't been that great. And both of these guys are heading into their late 30s. Canelo Alvarez is 34 years old. And then when we look up how old Terence Crawford is, 37. So, with that being said, when we look at that, you got Canelo who's 34, you got Terence Crawford who's 37. And for average fighters, you're on the last leg of your career at that point. But these two aren't average fighters. Canelo Alvarez, like I've said it many, many times, he's the greatest Mexican boxer to ever live. Terence Crawford, he's in my top five all of greatest fighters of all time. So for me, this is a huge fight as part of his legacy. He was right; it's a legacy fight for Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford has everything to gain. Canelo Alvarez has everything to lose. That's why I don't like this fight because it's not a fight that should be happening. Teofimo Lopez was calling out Terence Crawford, and Teofimo Lopez has a very good resume. And Terence Crawford was just shrugging him off, saying, "Get out of here." And I understand that Teofimo, his last performances haven't been maybe as impressive as Canelo's, but regardless, he was 14 pounds lighter than Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford is 14 pounds lighter than Canelo Alvarez. Teofimo has a pretty good resume and has accomplished a lot in his 25 years of living. Terence Crawford has accomplished a lot, obviously, in all the time that he's been in boxing. So when we look at it, what Terence Crawford is doing to Teofimo, Canelo was originally doing to Terence Crawford. And now Canelo wants to make that big fight happen with Terence Crawford. In my opinion, I'm just not the biggest fan of Terence Crawford going up 14 pounds to fight Canelo. Now, before y'all say stop meat riding Teofimo because you're basically proving our point. I don't want Teofimo going up 14 pounds to fight Terence Crawford. Again, the same reasons why I don't want Terence Crawford to. It's just not a good idea. We haven't even seen T.O. at 147. You think I want to see him at 154 and fighting Terence Crawford for? No, I need to see how he does at 147 first. So for me, that's the reason why I'm not the biggest fan of this Terence Crawford Canelo Alvarez fight, because I just think it's Terence Crawford will get to 168 pounds. That does not surprise me. I will not be shocked. He will be at 168 pounds. But here he is basically going to fight somebody like Canelo where there's a risk. Canelo's not going to come in at 168. He might come in a little bit heavier. So you got to think about that, the weight advantage. I feel like Canelo will be fighting in that rank. He's going to be about 180 pounds. Maybe Terence Crawford will bulk up. I mean, obviously we've seen that he can. So who knows what's going to happen there. But as far as health-wise and physically, the risk goes to Terence Crawford. As far as what's on the line, the risk is Canelo Alvarez. So for me, I just feel like it's more of a risk for Canelo Alvarez because he beats Terence Crawford. I'm telling you what people are going to say. They're going to say Terence Crawford was too small. Terence Crawford beats him, no, all of a sudden, great legacy. And that should be the narrative, in my opinion, for Terence Crawford. If you go and beat Canelo, yeah, that's a big legacy fight. You went up 14 pounds and you defeated the greatest Mexican fighter of all time. However, I don't think that should be the narrative if Canelo beats Crawford. I think if Canelo beats Crawford, I think the narrative should be Canelo just defeated another world champion, another Hall of Famer is on his resume. That's what it should be. I mean, but overall, the fight's made September 12th. It's going to be in Las Vegas. As far as William Scull, I'm hoping that he kind of improves on some things. He gets a little bit more aggressive. I hope that he's able to have a better offensive output. I would like to see him in some of those fights against like Christian Mabili, maybe Edgar Berlanga, Caleb Plant. Trying to think of other guys. There's a bunch of guys on 168 that he could fight. I just don't think he'll be ready for a championship shot anytime soon. I think that he's gonna have to really dig and crawl to get that championship shot again. But with that being said, overall, it's time for us to log out. Make sure y'all continue to tune into the Puncher's Point. Make sure y'all continue to tune into the prediction episodes, the post-fight episodes, the news updates. I know the news updates been a little bit slow. I've been very, very busy this entire uh with this entire event going on with Fatal Fury matches. Obviously, in a way, is going to be today. I'm gonna make sure I get that prediction episode up on YouTube, so make sure y'all go check that out. That in a way episode is gonna be on YouTube before this Canelo fight. So obviously, make sure y'all go check that out if you haven't yet. And with that being said, make sure y'all continue to tune into the social medias. Make sure y'all follow the social medias. Make sure y'all subscribe to the YouTube and the podcast platforms. And last but not least, make sure y'all stay on point with the Puncher's Point.